Ruin, the regression speed now, with the way that Ruin works now, it used to be a really hard skill check that was red. And if you got in the good area, it would regress the generator a little bit, but essentially you would just keep chugging along. So instead of like hitting a skill check and advancing a little, it would just regress just a little bit. But if you hit the great section of a skill check, of a hex skill check, it would be fine. There wouldn't be anything. You get a little boost, and in repair speed, and then that was that. This Hex Ruin doesn't have any of that. That whole skill check thing is gone. So at lower ranks, they don't have to worry about those skill checks anymore, which sucks in my opinion, because like I play both sides, and when I play as Survivor, I want to try and find the totem. Well, see, this is one of the problems. If I'm playing as Survivor, I want to hope that I brought small game, and I can walk around the map, and I can look for traps or totems. I like playing with small game. And there's 5 totems on the map, 4 survivors. Totem placement is constantly a joke. I mean, we saw in that game, my totem was right next to the generator upstairs. It was possibly the easiest totem placement, and that's where my active hex totem was. But those skill checks made you either play better, learn how to hit those, or you'd spend time looking for totems. You learn where the totem spawns normally are, or you run a perk that lets you look for the totems. This new one gets away with no more skill checks like that. Now, as soon as a survivor stops working on a generator, 200% regression. So currently, if I go over to a generator and I kick a generator, every second after that, when it's sparking, 0.25 charge out of 100% charge ticks away every second. This is as if that tick rate is 1 point of charge per second. So significantly higher. That's great. That's fantastic. But that's as soon as they stop on a generator. You no longer have to go and kick it or anything. It's just there. You just start regressing. But it's a Hex Ruin. It's a Hex perk, so you just break it, and then that's that. The Hex totem positions still suck. And Hex Ruin isn't nearly as strong as it used to be. This is a really cool effect when you think about it, and you think about, I don't have to spend time doing this, I don't have to spend time going and breaking this. I can see where they were working on a gen, now they're not, because, well, that's if I'm running it in conjunction with surveillance, because surveillance was where it was showing me the white auroras of generators that were regressing, or yellow if they were regressing and now they're being worked on or whatever. And you can also hear it, so you wouldn't have to necessarily get as close to it to see if somebody's working on it. But I think Hex Ruin's kind of dead for now. I'd probably go Pop Goes the Weasel at this point, just to get 25% of the gen down in one hit after a hook. Or Thrilling Tremors. This is a teachable by Ghostface. Technically, all of these are teachables that I'm talking about right now, because even Hex is a hag teachable. Plague. This is also how you can see if you have unlocked teachables. If you look at the character bio, and then it has little check marks by the teachable here. She has a really good one, Corrupt Intervention, blocks 3 gens, the furthest away from you at the beginning of the game for 80 seconds. 80 seconds in this game is a very long time. And it's not doing a lot of work for you, it's just letting you know that 3 out of the 7 generators are not being worked on for 80 seconds. And they are the furthest from you. So as you're like running towards the generators, because normally the way the game works is you spawn on one side of the map, and then on the other side of the map, that's usually where the survivors are to some degree. Sometimes you get unlucky and you spawn next to each other. But those 3 generators that are far away from you, those are blocked for 80 seconds. So that might be a good perk to use now that Ruin's kind of dead. Ghostface. Ghostface also has a teachable that I like to use. Thrilling Tremors. When you pick up a survivor that's been knocked down, any generator that you have that is not being worked on gets tentacles over it, or tendrils, or whatever you want to call it. The entity covers it up and won't let you work on it. Also won't let you kick it. But for 16 seconds, it's going to block that. It's going to block all the work on those generators. Now, the way that this pays off is the generators that are being worked on will not block. So, you got all these generators being covered except for one. Go to that one. That's where they're at. So I think those two are pretty strong, and I'll probably run those now because Hex Ruin would be decent if it wasn't a Hex perk. Like, just a normal perk that does that. Because this isn't really at the I think one of the jokes is that at the end game is when this perk really runs off. And unless you're running Noed, which activates in end game because there's at least one totem left, this is not going to last. Your Hex Ruin totem, your Hex totem is not going to last the entire game. Unless it's a shit game and you wouldn't even need the Hex Ruin anyway, or any Hex perk. But that's it. I think, well, now that we're done talking about that, that's the big one. That's the one that sucks today. This doctor change isn't terrible. I think his static blast is really cool. You have to remind yourself to use it, because it's really good at finding people, but it takes forever to recharge to the point where you're kind of like, oh shit, it's back. All right. So really focus on where that is. And now what it does is, anywhere in the terror radius, if you hit that and they're in your terror radius, they'll tear up in madness. And what I like to do is I like to use distressing now, to get that terror radius even bigger. I'm also getting more points for every time I shock somebody and have something come out from that. But it's adding to my terror radius, and that's helping me play the doctor better, or use his static blast more efficiently. Yeah, but that's it. The doc rework is not terrible. The Hex Ruin rework nerf is pretty bad in my opinion. If it's a big regression and you don't have to do anything, but survivors need to not touch the gens and not touch the totem. And I don't think that's fair to assume that they're not going to do either of those things to where it makes this perk effective. So yeah, don't run that. See ya.